Okay, so remember that they're changing my voice. Now let's try to explain this in terms of just nature. Nature communicated to the righteous who were insightful before there were any written books at all. Written books in many ways failed humanity. And let's truly understand why the oral tradition and the martial arts tradition in Africa thousands of years ago is greater than any holy book. Bear with me. I'm not reading from anything I wrote down. So nature, you have the sun, right? It sticks out big time. You have the moon, you have the stars. People see these things and they wonder what it means as they look around and say, hey, why are we here? Well, what is that up there? They see quite often that it can be helpful to have the high ground in combat, to rain down arrows on people, rocks, what have you. It can be easier to strike downwards with a spear or a sword. And they think about how that connects. They see the force of combat and the force of the animals as they fight each other. They see the tactics that they use. They see lightning, and lightning is set apart. In some places they see volcanoes. They see extremely hot days. They say God is in control of these forces. Now some people, because they're more scatterbrained and they want to believe that magically there shouldn't be what there should be, which is a king. So they say, hey, there's different forces that are controlled, that control themselves, like the animals do or something. Ironically, there's one species that's dominating the other species in nature, and they're human beings. And there's one person whose martial and spiritual power goes beyond the rest. But some of these people, they don't want to admit that to themselves. Some of these people they just don't want to admit anything. They don't want to hear about righteousness because they're jealous. That's how things naturally go. That is a very significant pattern in nature. They see the one sun and they say no. Some people want to pretend the stars are equal to the sun. They see the stars fall from the sky. They don't know that if the sun goes out, they probably don't know, at least, depends on what point in history, I suppose, that if the sun goes out, that the planet will go into extreme chaos. Life will die. People will die. They're basically done. But they know it's important. Later on, they figure out that they were right to assume that the sun is more important than the stars. The stars fall from the sky all the time. They die. With the sun, if it dies, there'll be big problems. So as we look at this thing, and we look at it carefully, the martial arts is quicker to notice that romantic relations are more important than just erotic desire. They notice that more quickly, and they appreciate it on a more profound level as they spiritually analyze things, and they see the movement of energy, what have you, in a way that goes deeper. Some of these people who can't win in hand-to-hand combat, who aren't as spiritually great, they try to come up with tricks. Maybe they break bricks. Maybe they come up with cute little tricks where they're blindfolded and try to argue that they are the masters of understanding these things. If they were, they would understand why not to cheat the most righteous warrior. Over time, they form systems where they try to use those tricks and their knowledge of those tricks to try to tell the top martial artists of the time what to do. Thus, the tree of knowledge versus the tree of life. Okay, the idea of a tree that gives you something important, and the idea of a tree that snakes you. Maybe there's actually a snake in it. Now, I'm trying to avoid alluding to the Bible too much. Let's just keep talking about nature here. But this is something that's been known for a long time. The righteous man, the great warrior, is the ideal person. The scientist is appreciated. The medicine man, what have you. The herbs bring healing. But ironically, the person is using things in nature that have value on a spectrum. Some of it has immediate values. Maybe somewhere down the line they'll figure out the value of the other things. But at that time, They have value. And the top martial artist is God's representative. And his value goes beyond everything else. So they come up with various stories to explain that. And people, out of jealousy, come up with various tricks. Magic tricks, if you will. And so we see that the woman who is smart enough to be willing to live and die with the top martial artist, she's infinitely more intelligent than the woman who's lost in darkness. A woman of the sun. A woman who understands how a woman should behave at night. So a woman of the sun and the moon, if you will. People start breaking off into tribes. Some are formed from jealousy. And they become like the snake, like a bitter, vengeful, poisonous snake. That even sinks to the level of eating eggs. Who, what, when, where, how, why? If the righteous bird kills the baby poisonous rattlesnake, who can blame him? But the profound evil that comes with killing the eggs of a noble animal. An animal that's communicating something noble. It is noticed. And as time goes on, we see the wicked on the planet making it so the planet is rotting like an apple. Instead of the righteousness of the righteous refreshing the planet, it's rotting. The wicked start doing detestable things. They notice that there's filth on the ground. Some of them become LGBT people. And they try to worship that filth in a sense. They try to become one with it. Almost certainly how homosexuality sprung up. From jealousy. From people trying to make their own system. And they have filthy sex. And they become one with the filth. The righteous ban any activity has anything to do with rebelling against God and the righteous, which includes homosexuality. Sometimes they execute people. Sometimes they cast them out. They judge the situation with a fair heart. The masses of the people, the test is for them. At some point, wickedness pinnacles and righteousness pinnacles. And they're opposing forces. But they don't meet halfway, no. When an apple is decaying, does it meet halfway with righteousness and refresh itself? No, it dies. It dies in the obstacle course. Sometimes it becomes an apple tree because of the seed, right? So it dies and it refreshes the obstacle course according to the limitation that it's given by God Almighty. The righteous and how they're treated are the main test for all of society, including the wicked. When the top martial artist of all time gives the divine verdict that now is the time to stop reproducing, anyone with even a little bit of sense stops. When he says, rally to me, everyone who's destined to rally to him does. Why are there some animals here and some animals went extinct? Destiny. Why do some primates evolve into inferior life forms to Homo sapiens? Destiny. Why am I the top martial artist ever possible? God's will and destiny. And people in my bloodline choosing to breed toward righteousness. They're women speaking the tongue of righteousness. They're righteous with their hearts, moving in righteousness, becoming one flesh with a woman who's smart enough to reproduce with the righteous without settling. Their heart saying to them what is fair and what isn't. Not some magician trying to control reproduction like a dog, but their heart. When women failed to submit, they were forced to submit to the righteous. And over time, they corrected their mistake. Like a drug addict saying, what were they thinking? And the wicked trying to superimpose themselves on the righteous, plundered women and brainwashed them and taught them the ways of stupidity. How do we know the difference? Well, you know by the righteous works, the deeds. You know by logic, by wisdom. You think it's wise to keep reproducing when people's brains are being hacked? You think you should reproduce with those doing it to try to avoid getting your brain hacked? That's called being a wicked, evil, horrible, rotten person. Why should reproduction be important in the absence of a planet that crosses a certain line And the line represents the point of no return. The point of return versus no return and no reproduction. In these truths is the truth about the situation. In the beauty of nature, in the beauty of righteousness, in the filthiness of filth, in the nasty smell of filth, we see the patterns that we need to see and understand. And we know that some animals like to trick. They'll kidnap the righteous and enslave them, make them filthy and say, he's the filthy one. Well, what kind of a dumb slut couldn't see it in them? Especially if they pour their wicked and contorted and callous heart out to them. What kind of an evil whore accepts it? How could you not see the difference? Because your forefathers kept breeding filth. And to each his own, just like in nature. Where humans have animal-like characteristics, some are more serpentine-like. The animals find each other. They don't breed with animals that aren't their same animal unless they're completely crazy. Human beings were given an extra chance. A chance to say, even though they're from a long line of wicked people, maybe they should submit to the righteous. When they refuse that extra chance, time and time again, they are sealed. The planet is done. What is there not to get? I rest my case.